starting to. All right. Again, I have the great pleasure of introducing Josh Mahaney, who is an assistant professor at ESSCA School of Management in Aix-en-Provence, France. He holds a PhD from Grenoble, École de Management, a Master in Science degree in Creative Studies from Buffalo State University, and he studies the creative process, particularly how individuals receive, elaborate, and promote new ideas. He is published in the Journal of Product Innovation Management and presented papers at innovation management conferences where he was awarded for his work. Joshua's many years of experience in corporate innovation range from work at Walt Disney Company to professional sports, where he, very interestingly, managed the first innovation lab for an NBA team. So with that, Josh, I'll hand it over to you. Oh, and sorry, I do just want to mention that we may have time for Q&A at the end. We may not, but feel free to post your questions in the chat. And if we have time, we can hopefully get to at least one or two of those questions. All right, thanks, Josh.
Thank you very much, Molly. It was my pleasure to meet Molly very recently, actually, when I stopped into Buffalo. But I'm back home in the south of France where I live. So happy to be back. It's a little bit warmer here than Buffalo, a little less piles of snow. So it's kind of
with me if it was just like.
So anyway, thanks for the introduction, and super happy to always contribute to the creativity community, where of course I got my master's degree at Buffalo State University, which is awesome to hear. And yeah, I have a little bit of research, some early research in creativity and AI. So hot topic. I'll present my early findings, and hopefully I can get some ideas from people. I can get maybe some discussion. Sometimes people like to take it away with AI and creativity, I've seen. So we'll see what happens. But thank you guys for coming. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll present do my presentation, and I'll get started. So let me know if you can see my screen, please, and you can hear me. So
yeah, looks good.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, so what I'm going to be presenting to you is something that's tentatively titled AI Integration in the Creative Process. It's me and a co-author who's at Grenoble École de Management also. His name is Rajarshi. And yeah, so I got started with this research later last year. And of course, I have a couple of things just to mention as sort of the motivation, right? The motivation behind the research. I'm particularly passionate about creativity and of course, and AI specifically. I've been following some trends in AI for a very long time, it feels like now. And had the perspective, like some AI researchers, that things would happen quite quickly. So I've been thinking about some of these ideas, but it's really my pleasure to be able to put together AI and creativity. As I've been thinking about those topics, it feels like for a while. So just a selection of, articles. There are many articles being written about AI, and especially in the last, few years, because of the commercial potential, obviously. So Time Magazine article, AI's influence on music is raising some difficult questions, right? And they talk about how, it's not AI that's able to generate like lyrics or generate like an idea for a story or something, but it really is about AI being able to be multimodal, what they call is multimodal, right? So AI has obviously narrow capabilities. It can help us. We maybe saw, design recommendations on PowerPoint a number of years ago, but now really you can have like a whole song produced by AI, right? You can have the lyrics generated by that AI, and you can have them sing or rap or whatever in in the language and or the sort of voice, whether it be a popular person or a made up voice, as you wish. So, Time discussed this. They talked about how even this VP of music in one of the top AI companies, Stability AI, they resigned because he believed that he was contributing to the loss of jobs, right? So people are even leaving AI companies, seeing the potential disruption in these certain industries. ChatGPT like 3.5 maybe is a turning point in these generative AI models that was released at the end of 2023, right around the time of this Time magazine article, extolling sort of the dangers or the difficult challenges that AI may bring to the foray. And there was this really big turning point when the Hollywood Screen Writers Guild they went on a 148-day strike, right, from May 2nd to September 27th, because AI had this threat of really disrupting their jobs. Now, of course, they were able to get away with an agreement. Were able to sort of push or kick the can down the road regarding AI and its potential threats to their livelihood and to other creative professions. But the question is, like, how long would that take, right? It seems imminent, and that eventually we'll have AIs being used and integrated in most sort of jobs and in most steps of most people's jobs at the very least, right? Some people talk about how they're already incorporating it in their job. People are using it as email writing assistants. So these tools are really being integrated everywhere in many industries, but also in each step, right? In different phases of someone's job, no matter what that job might be. So regarding the overall rapid advances in AI, again, this is sort of a research presentation. So we have some theory. We talk about, obviously, AI, human AI partnerships that can improve the creative process. There's research on AI and creativity. AI can, of course, free humans to be more creative there's a research in Academy Management Journal talking about how in sales positions, right, AIs can sort of work on some pieces and then increase the creativity of the salespeople when they're discussing potential sales opportunities with their potential customers. AI in general, they do have this capability of breaking the convention of structured imagination, right? They can retrieve or modify pre-existing schemas that keep individuals, humans, from generating the same ideas, or at least the same category of ideas, right? It's hard for us to break fixation, us humans. That's one of the major challenges in the creative literature. How might we break out of our pre-existing schemas when generating new ideas? So humans do see that value, right? They see value in integrating AI in the creative process. They see it, they perceive it as bringing novelty to the process. And then, this research in science talked about writers, even the less creative ones, when they have access to generative AI, they're able to generate ideas and stories really that are more enjoyable, that are seen as better quality, more creative by external judges, right? So the overall novelty might not be as high, but individuals are able to use generative AI to more novel outcomes. On the other hand, there is that notion of algorithm aversion, right? It's not just the fact that people are afraid that AI may take away their job, but there really is this negative reaction. Maybe it may change, right, as we incorporate AI more and it becomes more of a natural part of our daily lives. But we still have that aversion to algorithms, aversion to recommendations and or things when we know they come from AI. So there's research showing that disclosure of AI, for example, and it depends. Obviously, it depends the context on when AI is being disclosed, right? If AI is being disclosed in sort of a mechanical job, hey, AI is being used in this very mechanical route, algorithmic way, maybe there isn't as much aversion. But for example, a study talked about when AI is creating poems that are being expressed in the first person, right? Like I do this, I do that, I do that. And in the poem, it finds that when individuals realize, when it's disclosed that those poems were created by an AI, then there are some negative evaluations, right? So in certain contexts, in certain situations, using AI has some negative detriments, some negative effects. So we looked at this question of AI integration, right? That part of the question we looked at for our study was how does it change perceptions when you integrate AI in your creative process? We also looked more specifically at timing. So two of the key papers that sort of sparked this idea for us. The first one has to do with individuals feeling like less satisfied, unhappy, really, when they gained help near the end of an activity, right? Whether it's playing games or organizing flowers in a specific way, or many different experiments done with this paper. But essentially, if an external person helped out an individual in a task, their ownership went down when they were given help at the end of that task, right? And this holds when that task is extrinsic, right? Even when the task is something that people feel like is something they're motivated in doing, and also one where they a task in which sort of someone actually helps them out physically finish. When individuals go in and intervene near the end of a task, this decreases someone's fulfillment. Another article we looked at also that inspired us was the notion of creative activities, right? Another Academy management article showed that if an individual, where this was in the screen writing context, but if individuals received an idea in the later stages of development, that the ultimate implementation of that idea was less creative. And so there's different kinds of handoffs, right? Early handoffs. There's no handoff where an individual like writes a screenplay all the way to directing, for example, in the screenwriting or the producing sort of context. There's the idea of an early handoff, right? Where right early in the process, someone hands a project off to you and you kind of can finish majority of the creative process, or the late handoff, right? Where someone hands off a project to you right near implementation. And this research found that, hey, if someone hands off a project to you, a creative project to you later in the later stages, then that product is going to be less creative, right? And the reason for that is because the individuals are going to feel less ownership, which makes sense, right? If you were handed off an idea later in the development process and you have to work on it, maybe you're not going to be as motivated to make it as creative as it could be, right? And maybe it's not going to be as cohesive, because why would you care? You received an idea later in the process. So again, with our research question, we looked at, does the time at which an individual integrate that AI in the creative process, does that change what others' perceptions are regarding that creative product, regarding that creative process that individuals engage in? So that's really our main research question. We kind of look at it not like from those two papers regarding individuals and how they felt, when they were helped by other people, or individuals when they were handed off a creative product. We looked at the observer, right? That was the perspective we looked at for our research. So the perspective of the observer bias, right? Observers have different biases about different instances, context, people, and we believe that and observers are going to be biased against individuals who use AI in the creative process. And we do think that there is going to be an effect on when that individual integrates AI in the creative process, when the timing. So we again, hypothesis is individuals who generate AI earlier versus later in the creative process will be seen as less creative. They will not be seen as creative. They will be seen as doing less work, generating less effort, right? And of course, if an AI potentially is integrated in the creative process, then others will think that the AI contributed more, right? They will believe, hey, this AI came in early on, so they contributed way more in that process. So how do we do this? We ran some pre-registered experiments. These experiments are available online. What that means is we just say, hey, this is our general hypothesis around what we expect to find. And then, this is what we expect to find. And then when we run it, we can compare and see if it indeed, the results were as we hypothesized. So it's just a way of just, making sure that we're accountable. Our first experiment, we said, okay, individuals are going to be biased against others who use AI in the creative process. Okay, that's pretty basic, right? If I use AI in my creative process, people will be biased against me and my product. The second study, we showed that we said that there's gonna be a bias against users integrating AI earlier rather than later in the development process, in the creative process, right? And the third study, we looked at this bias from experiment 2 of the early versus late, and showing, I didn't finish the line, but showing that expertise doesn't matter actually, which was, I think I misspoke when I mentioned about these experiments before, but we show that expertise may moderate, but if it does not moderate, that means that expertise is not a factor in why why individuals may perceive people integrating AI as being less or more, seen as less or more investing in that process or in a positive way. So for study 1 and 2, we really looked at a music producer who decided to integrate AI recommendations from a music tool in the beginning or end of the creative process or the production process. In the early manipulation, we used words like generate and suggest, right? The AI we use it in the early stage of the process. This producer said they generated my ideas. They suggested beats, and then the later stage, we had experts using this tool and used words like finalize, right? The AI helped finalize and or polish the song. And so we have some words in terms of we use for expertise. Now I have like many slides, but essentially it tells the same story. So I can go through it quite quickly. What we show is, yes, people, in terms of the perception of effort that an individual who integrates AI into the process, people think that if you incorporate AI earlier in the process, there is much less effort being done than later. We show that in terms of the perceived creativity of the user, when someone integrates AI earlier in the creative process, they are seen as significantly less creative. And also, finally, when individuals use AI early in the process, it is perceived as being the AI as contributing more, right? The AI has contributed more to this creative process. And in the third study, which I mentioned of expertise, we showed that the same effect is replicated for experts and for non-expert users, right? Naive users or novice users. So no matter if you're an expert or a novice, you are going to have the same negative perceptions of incorporating that AI early versus later in the process. And that goes for perceived creativity, perceived effort being used, and perceived contribution of the AI as being seen as higher when used earlier than later in the creative process. So many implications. I know I may have just a few minutes left, but I love ideating. So I'm like, implications, awesome, future research. I have a million ideas, but basically, of course, there are this notion of when to integrate is key for perception of others, right? When you integrate AI, and this is important for AI disclosure too, right? When you use the AI or when you disclose you've used the AI. And this has implications really for the quality of not only the perceptions of others, but actually the quality. So some research says, hey, if you use AI early in the process, your ultimate product might be not as good. And you may not feel like you own the product as much, right? So there's all this talk about AI, that it's amazing and it's used. But you want to consider the fact that people will perceive you differently if you use it earlier or later in the process. And you might want to consider that even if you feel all energized and stoked because, you use this AI and it helped you out with all these ideas and stuff like that. But then at the end, one negative consequence might be actually the quality might not be as good, if you incorporate that AI, because you don't have that ownership, right? So so some future studies, you know, we want to know why this bias exists, right? Is there a reason? Is it because we feel like there's an insight bias? You know, people think that insight is higher valued than persistence, right? There's some research, a whole body of research around that. People think that, oh, you know, insight, the aha moment is so much more important, right? We all know about that. We talked about the misconceptions of AI in the master's program, right? But people do have that misconception, and it's in the research. So this idea that creativity really relies more on an aha than actually just persisting and going through the process. And so so I'm looking at other factors such as construal, right? If an AI at your home versus an AI in a data center may have an effect. I haven't really done those studies yet. Finally, I do want to mention the paper that from my other co-authors, Thomas Gillier and Fiona Schweitzer at Grenoble École de Management, who contributed incredibly in this paper, and it was published in Journal of Product Innovation Management. So I want to shout out them and shout out the paper. I'm happy to give you a summary of this. I'm working on a more of a layperson article to publish so people can understand it in a less researchy way, you know. But the question really is how to gain support for your new ideas, right? So hot topic, very important. And the answer to gain support for your new ideas, it's to get psychological ownership, get individuals to feel psychological ownership for those ideas. And you can do that by asking for idea receivers' contribution. You just ask them for their contribution. They will have more psychological ownership. Individuals that own their ideas more are actually more likely to support them. And I believe I might be wrong, but we have Nate Schwagler in the audience, and I think he said this in one of his interviews, that he can just, if you give people ownership, right? We've all seen it anecdotally. Well, I have actually proved this scientifically, or at least I have some evidence for it. Some other caveats, but I'm happy to discuss more with you. That's really it for me. So thank you so much for paying attention. Thank you everyone for showing up. I don't know if we have a minute or two for questions.
Unfortunately, we were right at time. So I know folks need to run to the next session, which starts in about 1 minute. But that was really, really fantastic, Josh. This is such a fresh perspective and a beautifully put together design and contribution to the field. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope you enjoy your final sessions of the day.
Thank you, Molly.